Hello, it is me, Irina, and welcome back to the Career Cravings podcast. Today's episode is about the secrets behind landing multiple job offers in a brand new country. So, if you are someone who has recently moved, you've immigrated, and you're trying to understand the lay of the law in a new country and really how to stand out in a market, today's episode is going to be super, super insightful. I am interviewing my past client who literally went from 0 interviews in 5 months to landing multiple offers. And she breaks down all of the shifts and secrets behind how she was able to land 2 offers in a brand new country by changing her strategy. So you are going to love this. And P.S., the very first step that she took was attending my free live masterclass, which I am super excited to announce is happening in just 2 days. So if you're listening to this live, we are having the next masterclass in like 48 hours, and you need to be there because the energy in the room, the shifts, the takeaways. Last time I hosted this session in January, the chat was freaking on fire and people just kept writing, oh my goodness, page full of notes. I have so many notes. I have so many takeaways. I have so many things that I'm going to apply and so much possibility and positivity and insight. So if you're someone looking for your next HR role, you have to be there. Just swipe up and the show notes have the link where you can join. And I can't wait to see you there. Hey, it's Irina Pozan, and welcome back to the Career Cravings podcast. This podcast has a simple mission. It's to help ambitious professionals like you build the career and life that you've been craving. Over the past 15 years, I've worked as an HR leader, designed hiring systems, led recruitment teams, and I've sat on the other side of the hiring table. I've seen what works in today's job market, what doesn't, and what separates those good candidates from the ones that actually land their dream roles. Now I'm bringing everything I've learned straight to you. Each episode is packed with actionable insights and tools to help you land your dream role sooner. Now let's dive in. Welcome to the Career Cravings podcast. I can't wait for you to hear about this story, career transformation today that I'm sure will inspire so many people listening. So Pratibha, welcome. I can't wait to dive in. I'd love to know where we started originally. I'd love to know kind of where you were at when we first met.
Okay, so I think this is something that I always will be excited to talk about because going back to where you started and where you are currently, it's like a story. So I had a strong global HR leadership experience and I was trying to break into Canadian market. I moved to Canada from India in 2023 and with an infant who is a toddler today, but at that time who was about 7 months old. And I was on a maternity break. My maternity break was really long because of the immigration as well. I was just trying to take some time to settle in and, familiarize myself with the country, people and the culture and, finding out a school or daycare or a Montessori for my son, etc. So it took me some time, it took almost a year to settle down. And after 1 year, when, I realized that, okay, now is the time that, I can return to the corporate world, I started looking for jobs. I was anxious for sure, because as I said, I was trying to break into the Canadian market. Despite my background, I felt like my experience was not translating the way I expected. Like I knew I brought value, but I didn't know how to position it locally. Yeah. And, I think this was the beginning of it.
Yes. So many new starts. It's like moving countries with your whole family, becoming a mom just a few months before that. And then not only settling from like what everyone has to do when they move countries, like find a new bank, find out like, all of your daily things, find a place to live. Then you're also trying to figure out where will my son go to school and like the daycare situation before you can even think about work. So that is a lot of different transitions happening at once. I can't imagine that was easy. So when you first started applying, I hear you saying you were not sure how to translate that experience because you had so much global experience. You knew you were qualified, but for some reason it wasn't being picked up. Like how long did it take for you to realize that something has to change and for whatever reason your experience isn't being noticed in Canada?
initially I thought it'll be like pretty easy. I look at job postings and I apply, and then maybe I'll get interview calls. And I honestly, when, in the beginning, I had a lot of confidence about, qualifying for interviews and then cracking those and getting, but as I started applying, like I was applying for so many roles and I was not even getting noticed. So all of this went on for about 4 to 5 months. Yeah, 4 to 5 months. And then yeah, also because, my application process was fluctuating a lot. There were weeks when I was pretty active on these applications. And then, there were weeks because of my toddler's health or something else personal that came up. I would pause this process. And then again, when after a few weeks again, I would find myself back in the square one. I felt like, okay, now I need to restart. So, and also because there was no turnaround, like my application was not getting noticed at all. I didn't have any interview calls, even after making a lot of applications. So the motivation level was going down. So all of this went on for about 4 to 5 months before I was introduced to you and, this, before I got to know about HR Star program.
I totally can see why at first you're excited. You're like, I moved. I know I'm qualified. I'm sure I'll start getting interviews and they'll be fine. And like that initial excitement sets in of like, I'm going to make a change, going to, go after this next career move in a new place. And then of course, it's normal for that motivation to drop if you're not seeing the same, if your results aren't matching, right? What your expectations were. Of course, it's natural to be like, well, I have a lot of things going on. I have a small child. And it's easy to prioritize other things when it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like, okay, there is momentum here, right? It doesn't match. So totally, totally get that. Okay. So then that went on 4 or 5 months. And then tell me what happened next. You mentioned we were introduced, but tell me more about maybe your decision to get support and how you went along making that decision.
Right. So as I said, I had to do a lot of thinking about what's working and what's not. And I think my biggest struggle was a Canadian experience gap. Even though I had led HR initiatives globally, before I moved to Canada, back in India, for a very long time, I was in global HR roles. So I did have experience, in multiple countries. I mean, leading HR for multiple countries, but Canada was not one of them. So I kept feeling overlooked because my experience wasn't local. It was frustrating to feel that, you're reduced to that one missing piece. So I was like revising my resume repeatedly. I was trying various other methods, but nothing was working. I think it was I thought that it was about Canadianizing my profile. But whatever I was trying kind of was not addressing the real issue. And I think that was how to position my global experience as an asset and not a limitation. This is where I thought I needed help and support. I needed strategic support. All this while I used to see your posts and, I heard one of your podcasts as well. I attended the master class. So I thought that, okay, this is the right time. And I took that decision of joining HR Star.
Amazing. And then what happened next? Or what surprised you, I guess? So I know you were like, okay, I think I'm not landing interviews because of this Canadian experience aspect that people want to see more of that. Obviously, any coach that you decide to work with, they can't change that. Like no one can change that fact. It's a fact. And we would never lie to say you have Canadian experience. And it's something that can't be changed, but everything else can change. So I'm curious, I guess, what surprised you the most about the work that we started in the beginning?
Yeah. I think it was when I realized that it is not that experience that alone was enough, the strategy mattered too. It's not that I needed like more credentials and necessarily the Canadian experience to, land into a good job. But then I needed clarity on how to communicate my value in the local market. So what surprised me the most, two things. One, this was really surprising, even though I've led talent acquisition. And this is, even when I consulted my friends and family, they were like, you've led talent acquisition and you know about, the in and out about the interviews and everything. And what do you need? But I think it's not just that, it's the strategy, it's knowing the smart ways of doing things. So, okay, going back to what surprised me the most, one was I was really surprised on how you tailor your resume, but yet not tailor it. I know it sounds funny, but
I've never heard it like that before, but yes.
You know why? Because you do tailor it actually, but just once. So you do look at your resume and kind of customize it, but then not to align it with a specific JD. You only look at how can you make your work look more impactful? How can you highlight your contributions? How can you add more percentages and numbers to it? So yes, you are tailoring your resume for this purpose.
To the target role. You do it once to the target role instead of doing it for every application, which is what a lot
so
of
when I
people
say
do.
you tailor it, talk about yet not tailoring, I mean, I'm not customizing my resume for each and every role that I'm applying for. So this is what surprised me the most, like one size fits all is actually possible because, and you are actually so smartly, you're talking a lot about this, that how you can just keep your resume standard and use that same resume for every application, because your resume has to speak about the work that you've done, the contributions you made, and the impacts. Once that is done, it's done. You don't have to change it for every job description.
And like with you knew what type of role you wanted to get into. You had a target. And most job descriptions, they will vary here and there, but the core of your target role is going to be fairly consistent no matter where you're applying to. And you'll see patterns and you'll see the same things on the job description for company A and company B and company C. And to your point, often the mistake people make is they think they're going to outsmart the ATS. So they're going to use all of the same words and then that will get them the best result. But like today, I had a masterclass, like 1,700 people registered. The chat was on fire. I'm asking people like, where are you at? How many times are you tailoring your resume? And I'm just seeing like every application I'm tailoring it. I've been applying for a year. I've been applying for 11 months. And I'm like, that must be taking a lot of energy and effort. And like, you don't have to do that. If you do it once strategically in a way that works, because at a point, you're just diluting your experience by trying to copy the job description if those are not your top accomplishments, right? So anyway, it goes against popular advice, but I'm glad that that's something that like stood out to you, and it surprises a lot of people.
Yeah, it does. And the second thing is, I learned how I can strategically talk about my global experience that still sounds like adding value to organizations in Canada, even though I don't have that experience. So attending those group calls, listening to you, listening to other stories, I started feeling like it's not a problem. It's just that I need to know how to talk about it confidently and how to sound more convincing, because I did have global experience, but I was just, I think, not confident about how to position that properly.
Yes, I love that so much. And once you see it as an asset, then you can be more confident to speak to someone else about that, where they will to also see it as an asset. So it's almost like getting the confidence back that you had at the beginning when you started applying, right? To be like, no, I know I would do a great job in these roles.
Yeah.
And then actually embodying that in this interview. Love that. Okay, so 2 big shifts happened with your initial process. And then at what point did it feel like something clicked, or it started working, or you started to see a change that you haven't seen in the last 4 or 5 months?
Obviously, I started getting interview calls. So that was a big change, because I was applying and I was not getting I didn't have even one recruiter reach out to me before I joined HR Star. And then when I started off, it did take too much time to, I think just within a few weeks, I got an interview call, and so in total, I gave 5 interviews, and for all those interviews, I did, crack through the first phone screening round, and it was the second round at, some of the interviews, it didn't work. And finally, out of those five, I got through two. So I actually had two to choose from. And then, I had to kind of consider a lot of factors, what's good, what's not, even though. So I had one offer that was for full-time employment and the other offer that was for a contractual role. But I did go ahead with a contractual role because I have my personal reasons. It's closer and other things. But yeah, it feels great that this was the biggest change.
A huge change. Oh my goodness. Okay. So I love what you just said. So a couple of things in there, going from obviously not hearing back, even one recruiter reaching out to multiple interviews, interviewing with 5 companies in the end. And what you mentioned was moving forward from the phone screen to the next stage every time. Now, this is interesting because it proves that they were totally okay after speaking to you, after understanding you didn't have Canadian experience. They were actually okay with that.
Yes.
Because otherwise they would have been like, oh, sorry, you don't have Canadian experience. Bye-bye. Like, we're going to go and move on at that phone screen stage to someone else. So I love that because I'm sure that built some confidence to be like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
And the other thing I really love is, of course, having an option as a new immigrant to have an option, because many people say you only had the contract position that came through and it was far or whatever it is. They don't have the choice to choose. It's either like, keep waiting, or you can start working in this one option, but you have to pick something closer to your house, which I'm sure with a small child with pickup, I remember Montessori drop off and pickup times. It's hard to do that with a job, especially a new job, right? Where we're kind of trying to prove ourselves and kids get sick. And it's just so nice to be close to home for so many reasons. Love that. What are you the most proud of achieving? It's you did the work, you applied all of the methodologies, you attended the sessions, you asked questions, you were in this growth learning mindset. So what are you the most proud of from this whole process?
I think I'm the most proud of reclaiming my confidence and owning my story, because honestly, I had started doubting myself. I was questioning my confidence and worth, and I was just questioning myself, like, what's going wrong? I knew that I have potential and I have good expertise, good experience, but I was losing my confidence somewhere. So reclaiming that confidence and owning my story, I stopped downplaying my experience and started presenting it with more clarity and purpose, so that interviewers and organizations are able to relate to it. And they also saw, this one gap in my, not a gap, actually, I should no more call it a gap, but they also, started looking at my experience as an asset than me lacking somewhere. So I think I'm the most proud of this, this reclaim that I did.
Amazing. That's the biggest shift, because the confidence that you gain through any work that you do on yourself carries with you in every aspect of your life, right? It's like, I know when I'm feeling good, when I'm feeling confident about my career or anything, then it translates to my relationship with my husband, with my son. Like it's something that stays with you, that confidence piece. So I love, love, love hearing that shift. Now, if someone is listening who is exactly in the same position you were 5 months ago, what would be like the one thing, one tip that you tell them, one piece of advice that you give them?
I think it's just in continuation to what I said, if you're questioning yourself, if you're questioning your experience because maybe you feel it doesn't fit a traditional mold, just know this, that the right support can help you turn that difference into your biggest strength. This support can be self-awareness. It can be somebody who's an expert. Like for me, this support was you, honestly. And then like when we start the process, maybe at the end of the day, we can just do a quick assessment on what worked and what didn't, and something that worked, continue with that, and something that's not working, maybe not worth thinking more about. For example, this was not initially, but when I was deep into this process in between, I realized that I need to kind of keep an eye on LinkedIn applications and apply for positions quickly as soon as they are posted. So I would apply those filters where show me job postings that were posted in last 24 hours. So this is not something that occurred to me initially, but only through my own observations plus, support that I was receiving from you and the group was amazing. So I think it's just, I just said that I think one should not be questioning themselves, but just believe in getting that extra smart support that is required.
I love that so much. And I love the tip of being an early applicant too, because many people don't think of that, even us that were in recruitment. But I learned this very early on, like 4 years ago when I launched HR Star. One of my early clients, Chantel, she landed a role at AstraZeneca. And I was like, how did you get through to a huge brand like that so quickly, right? Besides like created her resume and like all those things. And she's like, I was one of the first to apply. As soon as like a very small number applied, they closed and took down the application. But I was in the small pool of people that applied right away. And because of that, she went through the whole process and they ended up hiring her because, it's so hard once a role has been open for weeks. There's thousands of applicants or hundreds at least. So at that point, you just keep diminishing your chances. So that's such a great tip to take away. And also just the belief and the reflection. It's like, okay, amazing. I applied this week to, let's say, 50 roles. What worked well? Okay, being an early applicant seemed to work well, or what didn't work well? And then assessing, because that way you're always getting better and you're not just throwing spaghetti at a wall and like hoping someone will randomly call, but actually getting smarter and smarter and smarter. And that's how we always want to do everything, right? Like what worked, what didn't. It's just sometimes hard when if the job market, if we feel like it's challenging and nothing is working, it's hard to sometimes find the silver lining of what even is, right? So I love that you were able to do that. Any last piece of advice to someone listening that might be considering getting support?
I would just say that, instead of internalizing rejection, I think it's okay to seek strategic support sooner than later. This support can be external, internal, coming through your own observations, looking at how your day was, what you're doing, and all that we just spoke about. So I think the right guidance saves time, energy, and confidence. So if that guidance comes from your own observations, talking to friends, talking to your ex-colleagues, your ex-leaders whom you've worked with, I think, that will be my one last piece of advice.
I love that because if you don't change what you're doing, if you keep doing the same thing for 5 months and then another 5 months and another 5 months, there would be zero reason for things to change. They're not just going to change out of nowhere. You have to do something different, right? So whether it's, if you have support through friends that are actually helpful, I find often they're also just a stop. But if you have people in your community that are able to do that in a way where you start seeing the results, then that is amazing. And learning from yourself too, seeing the results, seeing what's changing. Because the worst thing, it's like the definition of insanity, right? To keep doing the same thing and expecting just something to be like, oh, okay, something will change tomorrow. And then it's so sad when so much time goes by and nothing changes, right? Okay, amazing. So well said. So concise. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I cannot wait to hear how your new role is evolving and also just can't wait to see what you accomplish next.
Thank you so much. That was really great. And it's so great that I don't know if everybody does get this chance, but if I'm one of those few ones who get to connect with you for, like this, I think I just consider myself as one of the lucky ones.
Oh, you're so sweet. You're so sweet.
Because
Thank you so much for being
with you is like, it's learning something new. Even if it is like how to articulate, even if it is like how to listen, how to ask, So, yeah.
So beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, before you go, if you've enjoyed listening to today's show, I would love your support. Please take a moment to leave a review anywhere where you listen to podcasts. And here's the exciting part. I'm running a special contest and giving away a one-on-one session with yours truly. All you have to do is leave a review, take a screenshot, and send it to me in my DMs. All of my contact info is in the show notes. I appreciate you so much, and I cannot wait to build the career and life that you've been craving together. See you next week.